As promised, I have here the solutions for what we'll have for problem number 3 and number 4. Big emphasis on these ones, again, is to remind yourself of where these things are going to start and stop. Because what's important is you need to know one point that's guaranteed to be on the line. And for most of these problems, I would suggest us probably either using the vertex or the midpoints, just because, again, midpoints and vertices, if you have them, guaranteed to be on the lines. When we look back at number 2, we knew it was going to land on the opposite side somewhere. We just didn't know exactly where. So that's why you absolutely needed to use the vertex for that one. And then the same thing with number 1. I knew that my perpendicular bisector had to start at a midpoint. I just didn't know where it ends up. So that's another one where we only have one option for the point realistically. But for numbers 3 and 4, you will actually have 2 coordinates to choose from. And my suggestion with these is to kind of trace out what you think this is going to look like. So if I was going to draw a median to side AC, I would come up to my diagram. I'd look and find side AC, which is this side right here. And I know that it has to start at a vertex and it has to meet the middle of it. Now, I don't know where the middle is. I'm going to guesstimate that it's right here. I don't know. This is an idea of what the line should kind of look like. But it's a nice visualization to say, I know it's going to start at point B, so I can use point B. And I know I also need the slope of the line. So if I could just find this midpoint, I could use those 2 coordinate points and literally count how far up and to the right we are going. So that's the game plan we're going to go through. In order to execute that game plan, I need to know exactly where this midpoint is. So let's go ahead and start that off real quickly. I need to find the midpoint of A and C. So if I write this out, the midpoint of AC, we are going to have some sort of a coordinate like this. And I got to look at what point A and C are. It looks like they're up here for me in the top left. So I'd add the x values together and divide them by 2. So A has an x value of -4. C has an x value of 2 divided by 2. A has a y value of 6. C has a y value of -8. Divide those by 2. All right, -4 plus 2 is -2. You end up with a number -1 here after you divide. 6 minus 8 is also -2, so you end up with another -1 with that as well. What I like to do is after this is I like to put the midpoint actually on my graph. And as you can tell, I didn't quite guess correctly up here, but it seems like -1 is actually going to be the midpoint right here. So I now know I have a midpoint and another coordinate point that's guaranteed to be on my line. I now have the point. I just need the slope that's between those two. So this is where I'm a big fan of the counting. When I come over here, I'll say, well, to get from one point to the other, how far do I have to go up? And how far do I have to go to the right to get there? If I count this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I go up, I've got a +5. If I go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I also have a +5 for that one as well. Your slope is the rise over the run. So the slope of my line that I need to use now, so if I find the slope of A to the midpoint, I know that that slope is going to be 5 over 5, or we could actually simplify that to just 1 over 1. That's the slope that I have between the orange dots. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you now have 2 coordinate points that you can use. You can use the midpoint, or you can use point B, because again, if you look at your graph, this is where it's starting, this is where it's stopping. Both those points are known to us. Use either of them. The slope of this line we now know is just the number 1 over 1, so we can throw this into point slope form. Since the midpoint's right here, I'm just going to use that one really quickly. We'd have y plus 1, remember, because we take the opposite of that value. My slope is 1 over 1. I might just write that as 1 though. And then the same thing with your x's. We are technically using the opposite of that x value right there. This looks like a beautiful equation for your median. Now we're going to do something very similar for our mid segment as well. We know it's from a midpoint to a midpoint. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to draw it, get a general sketch of it, and then kind of work from there to see what I need to find. So I need to find the midpoint of AB and BC. AB, I have the midpoint already calculated, it looks like. AC, I have the midpoint of that one calculated already as well, but we'll go ahead and do that math again for you guys. And it looks like this is the mid segment that I'm trying to actually calculate. So goals, I need to find this midpoint because I don't know what it is. I need to find this midpoint, and then I just need to find the slope that is between them. Let's go ahead and find the midpoints of AB and AC. So I'm going to break this down. Midpoint of AB. So if I start with this, I'm once again going to have some large numbers to choose from. I'm actually going to copy these really fast just so we don't have to travel up and down a lot. Let's toss those right here for us. So the midpoint of AB, if I add the x's together, that's negative 4 plus 4 divided by 2. Add the y's together, 6 minus 8 divided by 2. Pretty sure the slope of AB is going to be negative 4 plus 4 is 0 divided by 2 is 0. 6 minus 8 is negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Let's toss that on there, 0, negative 1. Hey, look, I have, I done messed up somewhere. AC, did I write down those coordinates wrong? Yes, I did, look at that. I messed up this one. AB, so if you have 6 plus 4, let's try that one, divided by 2, I believe that answer should give me 5. Let's see if 0, 5 is the midpoint of AB. Second time's the charm. Look at that, 0, 5, right there, right on that red dot, we nailed it. Now let's find the midpoint of AC so we can calculate that again. Technically, we did that right above, but I'm just going to redo the math for you. You have negative 4 for the x, you have positive 2 for the x, divided by 2. You have 6 and negative 8 for your y's, divided by 2. You once again get the number negative 1, negative 1 for this midpoint. So we now have two midpoints. And again, I basically have all that same work right here just to replicate it. Once you have those two midpoints, it's now a factor of how do we find the slope between those two blue dots that I have on my graph right now. You can use the formula, or if you want to use the counting method, we can just count how far up and how far to the right do I actually travel. It looks like I travel up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so I have a plus 6 for that one. If I travel to the right, I think that's a plus 1. Your slope is your rise over your run. So I believe my slope should be a positive 6 over a positive 1. Let's write that down. 6 over 1. And ladies and gentlemen, you now officially have two coordinate points to use. You only need one of them, so I suggest using whichever one's easiest for you. This seems to be all positive numbers, and usually zeros are nice as well. So I'm going to use that point. The slope, or the equation of my line should be y minus 5. I've got my slope, and x minus 0 is the other coordinate, ladies and gentlemen. We now have that, and sometimes it's nice just to double check your work. The way that I double check it is if I start at one of these coordinate points, let's say we just start at this one, and I follow the slope that I have here, I should be drawing something that looks like a mid segment. So if I start at point 0, 5, and I draw from here, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1 would be somewhere like right here. And guys, if I connected those dots together, you would have yourself a beautiful mid segment that connects one midpoint to another midpoint. Huge emphasis on this of things that you need to know. And I Can't emphasize this enough, actually. You need to know a perpendicular bisector, specifically where it starts and where it stops. You need to know what an altitude is, where it starts, where it stops. You need to know what a median is, where it starts, where it stops. And then you also need to know your mid-segment, where it starts and where it stops. Hopefully this helps you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck on your studying.